Hello, everybody out there in Radio Land. Y'all are listening to Media Cyphers only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm.org. As always, the following thoughts, views, and opinions are not necessarily those of 89.1 WIDR or Western Michigan University, no matter how dope or insightful those insights may turn out to be. Well, we got a lot to talk about on today's show. Again, want to thank Diop Harris for joining us last week. Hopefully, it helps make you feel more well informed going into the ballot box or filling out your ballot at home this upcoming August. Um, well, like I said, we've got a few things to talk about, and I wanted to start right off the bat. We've got an update about the situation over at Wildwood. What's interesting, this particular issue has gotten a pretty great deal of scrutiny from local media and press. I have to do hats off to Channel 3 WWMT for really staying on top of this and kind of highlighting this is when we're on the show and we're talking about housing and we're talking about exploitative landlords. This whole situation at Wildwood really is a case in point. And it's gotten to the point where they have had to kind of put out a statement. They said, quote unquote, we're not hiding, whatever. It's one of those very coached like PR statements that tries to make them sound like more decent than they actually are, when we've been hearing that like they've only offered tenants like 5 days and then just go find a place somewhere else to live. That may have changed in the recent days. It's a very quickly developing story, but one thing that I am finding very hopeful about this story, and very interesting in its own right, is the way that the community is really coming, solidarity with the folks at Wildwood. Um, and, despite the fact that, a lot of times, in these positions, people end up just kind of ignoring these situations, or again, a lot of times when there are poor conditions at an apartment complex, the landlord will blame the tenants. It's, oh, it's their fault. They're not doing the typical upkeep. Now, of course, this situation is a little more black and white. You're talking about exterior railing, which is not something that your tenants would be expected to upkeep or keep in good condition. That is to say, it's outside of most tenants' wheelhouse to keep a wooden rail system in a state of decent repair. So it really has fallen on the owners of Wildwood, and they are being scrutinized in a way that oftentimes we don't see here in the community. I think often about Lukeman is an infamous name in the Vine neighborhood. Very little press has very little ink has been spilled over the myriad kind of the dossier of Lukeman's slights against tenants here in the Vine neighborhood. But there has been a great deal of attention on this one, up to the point where even city officials are getting involved. I want to read briefly. This is from an article from WWMT. Township supervisor calls for Wildwood off Main to stop bullying tactics against tenants. Kalamazoo Township Supervisor David Combs said the township and county will not enforce evictions or eviction notices from apartment management. Combs said apartment management called 911 on Wednesday asking township police to potentially help enforce evictions. I'm appalled by the bullying tactics that I'm seeing in the attempts to prey on folks' knowledge or lack of knowledge of this process, Combs said, which is to say, that is the township supervisor acknowledging that what Wildwood is attempting to do is an illegal eviction. And the fact that they would contact the township about carrying these out means one of two things: either the management is so stupid that they do not understand basic housing tenant law in Michigan, which, not likely, but maybe, or they thought the township would play ball with them and carry out these evictions early, which is, something that has happened in other places. But we do have to give immense amount of credit to the Kalamazoo Township for not, carrying out what amounts to like a Pinkerton raid on residents of Wildwood whose only crime is living somewhere that their landlord has not properly upkept. Again, this is not on them. It is completely on the property management company. And what I say is very hopeful about this is, there's this kind of there's this thing that is discussed a lot in revolutionary movements. The ideas of like the guards like switching sides, i.e., you had the Russian Revolution where the soldiers who were meant to put down the revolution ended up joining the revolutionaries. We've had situations where not here in America so much, but I'll loop around and get back to that, where police have laid down arms and joined the people and these kind of revolutionary moments. This is a a much smaller scale version of that, of course, but I don't think it's something to be taken lightly when a municipality says, no, we will not be, we will not act as your hired goon squad to kick people out of their apartments because of something that is qualifiably your fault. It is your fault that these stairs are in such a state of disrepair. Um, and it harkens back to me of like, we talk a lot about the solidarity that we should look at in our own history of movements that, I'm thinking back to like the Dust Bowl. There's a lot of documented cases of like an entire town bidding low on a property that had been foreclosed and turning around and giving it back to the person, or literally creating like, a a human wall or a human chain to keep prevent a sheriff from evicting a tenant. Sometimes, in fact, doing a citizen's arrest on the sheriff to keep them from evicting a tenant. Now, in this case, that wasn't quite necessary, but obviously, one thing that I do, caveat, we talk about, okay, the guards joining the people in America. That is a much trickier proposition because, as we talked a lot about on the show, American policing in particular is really sourced from two historical functions: slave catching and strike breaking. And the fact that the township would come out and say this, I think it is an understanding that sometimes people's innate empathy and common sense bubbles up and shines through. There's that famous thing, a cab, all cops are something I can't say on the radio. And the idea of behind that is not, oh, all cops are innately just terrible human beings. I mean, some of them are. We've seen, evidence of that over the years. But it is to say that they are part of a system where no matter how good-hearted or nice or polite or kind they are, they may at some point be forced to carry out something that makes them something I can't say on the radio, i.e., saying evicting an elderly woman from their apartment, or from Wildwood Apartments. That would be technically part of their job duties. But in this case, you see an institution actually kind of sticking up for the people of Wildwood and saying, we are not going to do that. We are not going to be an arm for this corrupt property management company that is trying to force its tenants to pay for their own mistakes. He went on. David Combs went on to say, "I am appalled by the bullying tactics that I'm seeing and the attempts to prey on folks' knowledge or lack of knowledge of the process. They are suffering because of this tiff between the Kalamazoo Area Building Authority and the management company, and because the owners of the management company have not kept their buildings up to code," Combs said. "We will not enforce any evictions or notices of eviction that the management company might try to send," Combs said. So it's a good example of a township supervisor really sticking their head out and staying with their people, with their citizens, And it gives me a little bit of hope that especially at like as far as small d democracy goes, there's still an ability for people to really like kind of stand up for what is right and express solidarity with the working class. Um, and I would hope that we can see more of this kind of thing in the future when a property management company is clearly in the wrong, and it would be nice to see more city institutions and police say, you know what, it might I might be legally obligated to be the person who does the eviction, but maybe that's not the most ethical thing to do. Yeah, be it would be would love to see it. So anyway, if you want this latest update, this was published May 28th. Township supervisor calls for Wildwood off Main to stop bullying tactics against tenants, and we'll share that and maybe a couple of the other pertinent articles for those who want to stay updated on what's going on at Wildwood. But again, summation, an interesting bit of municipal and class solidarity coming out of Kalamazoo Township, and something to celebrate. Hopefully, this the public scrutiny, combination of public scrutiny, along with this solidarity from the township and the citizens, will uh, force this property management company to have to do the right thing for its tenants. Keep it locked, y'all are listening to Media Cyphers only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm.org. You can also find us online at Media Cyphers on Facebook, YouTube, and the Media Cyphers Kalamazoo podcast you can find on most podcasting apps. Keep it locked. This is Media Cyphers, your source for political revolution. Hello again, everybody out there in radio land. Y'all are listening to Electro, or no, that's my music show. Y'all are listening to Media Ciphers only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm.org. Next story I want to talk about. This really hits me right at kind of right where I'm at. Some of you know I've talked about this on the program before, but by day I am a healthcare worker. I work in I basically help folks with mental and developmental disabilities, and we've talked about this on the program, the Trump administration and particularly RFK's role in scaling back a lot of the safety net for disabled folks. And there's this really great article in Truth Out that really digs into it. I wanted to read a little bit from it. My co-host Lawrence should be joining us around 12:30. But this is an article from Truth Out by Marian Deneen. Disability rights are at risk as 7 states back case attacking key protections. It's published on May 30th. The right of disabled people to live in community rather than being warehoused in institutions is under attack in a lawsuit currently being pursued by Texas and 6 other states. But advocacy efforts are persuading states to pull out of the suit against the Department of Health and Human Services and Secretary of HHS Robert F. Kennedy, called Texas versus Kennedy. Which, by the way, I know that sound confusing. It's like, well, if you say RFK has been kind of scaling back things, basically it's whoever the HHS secretary is at the time, or who the suit is against. So in the Biden administration, it was against that Secretary of Health. So it basically but the reasons of the case, that is why Kennedy's name is in it. So 2 state plaintiffs withdrew from the case in May after hearing concerns from the disability community, bringing the number of remaining state plaintiffs to only 7 in an amended case that began with 17. The case could really alter the legal landscape for people with disabilities who have support needs. Claudia Center, legal director at Disability Rights Education and Defense Fund, told Truth Out. Alongside Texas, the other state plaintiffs are Alaska, Florida, Kansas, Louisiana, Missouri, and Montana. Indiana and South Dakota dropped this month. The lawsuit targets Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, a landmark piece of disability rights legislation that prohibits discrimination on the basis of disability in federal programs or programs that receive federal funding. Since that legislation, as well as the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990 came into force, federal guidance and court rulings have helped clarify how the laws must be applied and who is protected under them. Texas versus Kennedy also targets some of these precedents, especially a body of regulations and decisions, effectively or often collectively called Olmstead or the Olmstead Rules, which ban the unnecessary segregation of disabled people and allow them to receive services in the community rather than in institutions. The name comes from the 1999 Supreme Court decision in Olmstead versus LC, which held that segregating disabled people when needed support could be provided in community is a form of discrimination prohibited by the Americans with Disabilities Act. If a decision in Texas v. Kennedy narrows existing protections under disability rights laws, federal regulations, and legal precedents, Senator told Truth Out, disabled people could be pushed into institutional settings, adding, some of them, depending on their disabilities and situations, could be pushed into jails and prisons, and some would die. We certainly have seen deaths in the past when support programs for people with disabilities have been cut. 17 state plaintiffs first filed the case during the Biden administration as Texas versus Becerra after the agency released a long awaited rule updating Section 504. The updated rule strengthened anti discrimination protections and the right of disabled people with support needs to receive home and community based services. The rule clarifies that the so-called integration mandate, first outlined in the ADA, requires entities receiving federal dollars to serve disabled people in the most integrated setting appropriate, one that provides opportunities to live, work, and receive services in the greater community and affords individuals choice in their daily life activities. It also clarifies that disabled people can bring a non discrimination suit if they are at serious risk of institutionalization due to a lack of community based services, even if they have not yet been institutionalized. 8 states withheld from Texas versus Becerra before an amended complaint was filed in Texas v. Kennedy in January 2026, after Kennedy's HHS announced a trio of anti trans rules the previous month. One of those rules addressed part of the original complaint, which argued that the Biden era rule was unlawful because it acknowledged in its preamble that gender dysphoria may be a disability. Instead of that claim being settled in court, Kennedy's HHS proposed new federal regulations to explicitly allow recipients of federal funds to discriminate against people with gender dysphoria on the basis of disability, a change that LGBTQ civil and disability rights groups come together in opposing and condemning. So yeah, this is a 2-for-1. A lot of these conservative activists not only can they kind of declare queer gender expression some sort of mental health disorder, but they could also punish the disabled and try to shove them back into the institution setting. Now, I want to say, like, for our younger listeners, a lot of you didn't quite grow up in a world where this was the norm. And I, for most of my part, didn't really either. A lot of these changes were happening in the '90s when I was growing up as a kid, but it was a type of work that my parents did, and then I went on to do. My mom worked both at the Kalamazoo Psychiatric Hospital, and for some of these, more inclusive community agencies that we have in town. And there is a generation, especially a lot of the older clientele in these companies that remember being in institutions and are very traumatized by it. Their experiences at those types of places remain a challenge to their caregivers deep into their later life. And of course, it is worth remembering too, at the same time, some of these institutional settings that can be appropriate in some cases for very extreme cases, have been similarly defunded throughout the years. Even going back to the 1990s, my mother was laid off from the Kalamazoo Psychiatric Hospital because of cuts under John Engler administration. So the danger is, especially in a lot of the language you hear from RF Kennedy, really stigmatizing like autistic people, threatening that queer people are dangerous, trying to infer that being trans is like some form of mental health disorder. It all points to an administration that wants to go back to the bad old days of just shoving disabled people away into institutions. Not even necessarily because it's cheaper, because as it talks about in this article, it is actually more cost efficient to have these kind of community inclusive services. But as with much of the Trump administration, it does seem the cruelty is the point. And you have the president of the United States on down, like he's got some disabled relatives himself that he has just completely scorned and ignored because they're quote unquote icky. This is a man who wears his prejudices on his sleeve, and he's never had any love for people who need a little bit of help maneuvering around in our society. So, if you want to read that full article, you can find that. That's again on Truth Out. Disability rights are at risk as 7 states back case attacking key protections. Written by Marianne Deneen, published on May 30th. Keep it on locked. Y'all are listening to Media Cyphers only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm.org. You can also find us online at Media Cyphers on Facebook, YouTube, and the Media Cyphers Kalamazoo podcast you can find on most podcasting apps. Keep your dial locked. This is Media Cyphers, your source for political revolution. Hello, everybody out there in Radio Land. Y'all are listening to Media Cyphers only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm.org. So I'm going to read something real quick from Michigan Advance. And it's something that we talk about on the show every now and again, in the fact that America, how does the quote with America is a what is it, a one party state that try to hold on. I really want to get this right, so because it sets up the whole story. I don't want to oh yes. Okay, so yeah, it was Julius uh Nyerere, who was um an anti-colonial activist down in Africa, and he said, America is a one-party state, but with typical American extravagance, they have two of them. And the article here talks about um, efforts to try to get fusion voting here in Michigan um, from minor parties. It's being brought by the Libertarian Party and it's kind of this Lincoln Party adjacent conservative common sense party. So yeah, not typically not good ideological bedfellows for the working class or people on the show, but that would also be in the interest of parties like the Greens and Socialist Party, of which I'm a part. Just a quick description if you don't know. Fusion voting is candidate can be listed under as many party labels as nominate them, and then their votes under all of those parties are added together to calculate the complete vote total. In New York, for example, one of the states where fusion voting is used, a candidate can be listed under both the Democratic Party and the Working Families Party, a progressive minor political party, and the candidate will get to count the total votes cast for their name. So anyway, if you want to find out more about that, that's from Michigan Advance, written by Catherine Daly. Minor parties in Michigan are suing to allow fusion voting, calling current law anti-competition. All right, we'll be right back. When we come back, I'm going to have my co-host on. We'll hit on all of the important stories of the day. Keep your dial locked. This is Media Cyphers, your source for political revolution. Hello again, everybody out there in Radio Land. Y'all are listening to Media Cyphers only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm.org. Joined by my co-host Lawrence. Lawrence, how you doing today?
I'm all right, man. How are you?
Oh, doing pretty good. It's a beautiful day out. I'm gonna be going to the Growlers game later. Because it's baseball, right? This shows who we could be and what we could be again. So I'm
Before
slaughtering that James Earl Jones quote. I don't know. This
we,
is
yeah, before we
terrible.
start, I do need to say, because me and Andy both graduated the same year, and our class anniversary is this week. Our class tree is this weekend, so
Oh yeah, yeah,
I just wanted to throw that out there into the
yeah.
class. So yeah, our class anniversary is this weekend, so I'm excited for that. That's what I'm happy for. Is to
Mhm.
get to see everybody, I haven't seen everybody in a long time.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think like it's. I've been joking with my wife. It's like if there's like an award for like absolutely not surprised what he did after high school. It's like, oh, Andy's like yapping on the radio every week. Like, really? I couldn't. My the graduation speech I did was only about 45 minutes. So like, that's
Pretty much, man. But
yeah,
yeah, I'm excited. But there's been a lot of wild news, man. What's going on in New Jersey and the protesters at Delaney Hall.
yeah, yeah,
Shout out to Status Quo and them. We're gonna talk about that a little bit later in the day. It's primary day in multiple states.
yeah. It
Looking at
is.
California, tonight's gonna be a night. Uh, Troika Chakrabarty is trying to take Nancy Pelosi's seat uh, against Anthony Weiner. You know what I'm saying? I'm not making up his last name. His last name is Weiner. You know what I'm saying? Um, there's a bunch of the mayoral races in LA and things of that nature are trash. I don't want to bring that up. Um, Tom Steyer. I cannot believe, as someone who says that we need to tax billionaires, I'm actually saying Tom Steyer is the best choice for governor in that race. And what a fall from grace Katie Porter has been. Just
Ooh.
Jesus Christ.
Oh man,
Just
yeah. Oof.
like 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 I don't know who's a part of Katie Porter's team, but and I don't know if it's just Katie Porter's hubris that got her in this position, but you got outflanked by a billionaire who's for a wealth tax on billionaires. The billionaire is the most progressive out of that race. That is wild to me.
Yeah, and then very embarrassing. Oh my God. This, dude.
The class trader in the class trader in this situation is the billionaire.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Jesus Christ, man. Like, yeah, dog. We got billionaires that are class traders. You got one of the co-founders of Justice Democrats, Troika Chakrabarty. I cannot sing his praises loud enough. He uh insiders. I think it was Hakeem Jeffries staffers that said after AOC got rid of Troika Chakrabarty, she was much more reasonable. She was easier to deal with. This is what the insiders in Washington were saying. And Troika was one of the four people who started Justice Democrats. He's the reason why we had Cory Bush, Jamal Bowman, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, Ayanna Pressley, and AOC, and that insurgent candidate. And now he's running to get into Congress. We need someone like him inside that will pull this party farther to the left. Like I'm very happy. I'm happy that he's running. I don't know if he's gonna win, but I'm just happy that he's doing it, and I hope that if he wins or lose, I hope he still stays putting boot to neck. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Boot to neck to those who want to hold us back. So yeah. So yeah, there's some positives. There's a lot of negatives, and we gotta get to that.
All right. Well, I think kind of bringing things back to the mitten. There's a story I wanted to touch on, and this is kind of part of our bigger subject of talking about AI and AI data centers. Again, this is been one of those issues, those rare issues where you see like it doesn't really matter where people come from, whether it's, you know, uh, rural Michigan or, urban centers like Kalamazoo, Detroit, Ann Arbor. People are not, they are not with these data centers. To the points where we're actually starting to see the mainstream media uh, pull out the oldest trick in the book. You've seen this mostly on Fox News, but a little bit on like CNN and some of the more liberal outlets. The idea that the opposition to AI is somehow being astroturfed by the Chinese government. Yeah, these are old things. You go back to the civil rights movement, and you don't have to flip through too many photos before you'll stumble on a picture that's like race mixing is communism, or outside agitators, socialists are trying to stir up trouble here. This is a very old canard. You see it deployed whenever, well, basically whenever like something is going against what the ruling class wants. And you saw this in like a lot of the uprisings that happened in 2020. It's like the idea of the outside agitator or the outside radical, and we're starting to see this now in this discourse around AI. All these anti-AI extremists who are supposedly being duped by communist propaganda from China. How people are getting that, I'm not really sure, but um, I think it kind of shows
Same way.
the desperation of the ruling class, because they're trying to build like it's one of those issues where the actual rank and file, like ordinary everyday people, regardless of a lot of their partisan politics, are have a bipartisan consensus against AI, whereas all of the people in power, whether they're conservative or liberal, have a kind of pro AI consensus. It is one of those issues where you're seeing the again the working class and the ruling class diametrically opposed, and now they're just kind of throwing some of their greatest hits at the wall to see if it'll stick.
Yeah, Dad. We've covered multiple stories about data centers and the effects that it's had on Black and Brown communities in Memphis. We've talked about the water pollution that the data centers in Utah has been doing with the environmental pollution, uh, the heat that's generated from these data centers are sometimes twice as much as what the city or state does in at the same time. We talked about that in Utah. We talked about that in St. Louis and Memphis. And yeah, now in Michigan, we have a data center that's doing all of those things, all of the same things. It's like we read this. It's like we had an open book test. We knew, we knew what it was gonna do, and we were like, "Yeah, just let it happen."
Yeah,
And
and
the res- the residents is like, "No, this is harming us." You don't say. Like, yeah, this is what these data centers do.
yep, and we're seeing that dynamic play out. Like I mentioned, this is a Michigan story, and it is. We're seeing that dynamic play out in real time. Like there's two stories that really exemplify this idea of like ordinary working people versus the interests of like the ruling class. There's a story out of Dowagiac over uh, basically just the citizens of Dowagiac are starting this grassroots effort to sue the company that's already built a data center. Um, it, it currently exists in Dowagiac, and apparently it's creating such excessive noise that it's ruining quality of life for the surrounding residents. One of them commented, "It's like having a vacuum cleaner on all the time." And I'm trying to read from this article, but my computer froze up. Uh, so, um, but essentially, yeah, we're seeing the people of Dowagiac be like, no, this corporation put this thing out with, kind of really without getting, the proper education or consent. Um, and the residents are now banding together and suing the data center's owner for being too loud, saying the lawsuit is admitted and continues to emit unreasonable and excessive noise onto plaintiff's property. Um, Lawsuit blames the facility's cooling fans and lack of barriers keeping the noise contained. Neighbors tell us the sound levels in front of the center have reached 60 to 70 decibels. That's about the same noise as an air conditioning unit or a dishwasher running 24 hours a day.
Jeez.
So yeah, again, I think this is something that's underreported as far as these data centers go, but like, yeah, anybody in proximity, not only are you talking about the very real, like, water and land pollution, but the noise pollution. It's also really bad. It also just degrades the quality of life for people who have to live around it. Kudos to the people of Dowagiac for kind of banding together and, you know, using their resources to band together and try to bring this legal case against I'm sorry, what was the company's name? Excuse me. um Company's name was Alliance Cloud Services, a subsidiary of Hyperscale Data Incorporated. Everything is just sounding more dystopian and cyberpunk every day. Uh, so, yeah, but good on them for that. Um, and then I have a flip side to this story. But Lawrence, any thoughts on that?
Man, no. Like it's okay. Well, how many stories have we done about the environmental impacts that companies have on Michigan, and they have been detrimental to the health and well-being of our state? Like
Well, too
how,
many.
like
Yeah.
from Nestle stealing fresh drinking water, right? Right. Like that was a story that we didn't talk about. From the different oil spills that happen in Kalamazoo River to PFAS being in the drinking water and in the air, right? Lead levels in lower and lower Michigan states. And now we have data centers. Like we talked about DuPont and how DuPont and other companies like graphic packaging and others and the just rapid pollution that they've done, right?
Mm-hmm.
And and this data center plops itself in Dowagiac and it's just like, hey, we're gonna join the party too. It looks like the like, hey,
Yeah.
it looks like up in the pool right here, like it's like fine here. Like, who cares what these residents have to say?
Yeah. Mm. Um, so the flip side of that is okay, like so that's how ordinary like Michiganders are responding to AI, right? How about the governor? How about like the Democratic governor, Gretchen Whitmer, who is supposed to at least be more nominally liberal on these sorts of things. Well, there's a big article from, and I want to talk a little bit about the article itself too, because this is a good time to do some meteor deciphering. But this is from the Ann Arbor News, and it's talking about OpenAI Oracle leaders praise data center south of Ann Arbor pledge $10 million to local center. That's published on June 1st, and this is right outside of Saline Township. OpenAI CEO Sam Altman and Oracle CEO Clay Magura came to town to celebrate the data center. They were joined by Governor Gretchen Whitmer and other top brass and firms involved in the $16 million data center. So she's right in the middle of the line here, holding a shovel. We're groundbreaking on this big data center right here in Saline, Michigan. What a great thing. Oh boy. Um, but the funny thing, this article doesn't mention at all any of the controversy that surrounded this data center or any of the context around why people may not have wanted this data center. In fact, we were reporting on the story last year, um, and what happened was the Saline Township actually they did the right thing. Their initial vote in response to a ton of public pushback, was to say like, no, we need to like, take a step back and look at this and not do it. The initial rezoning denial was followed by a lawsuit from OpenAI, and the cost of that legal fight basically ended up changing the township's opinion options. It's basically what it said was the people of Saline decided we don't want this data center in town. OpenAI responded by saying, "Okay, well, we're going to sue you and we're going to take you to court. Basically, hit you with a slap lawsuit that's going to tie up your little town's municipal government." And so the Saline Township folded in order to not get burdened with a money and time consuming lawsuit. Um, and that is the backdrop of the data center in Saline. Was the people of Saline saying, we do not want this. They did everything right. They petitioned their township board. They're like, we do not want this AI data center here, only to have the titans of industry respond, well, okay, well, how about like a huge lawsuit instead, which basically backed Saline Township's municipality into a corner. And then you have all of these officials coming in to celebrate it through a big party, including Governor Gretchen Whitmer. They're playing it in everyone's face. This is something unequivocally the people of Saline said they did not want. Corporate America shoved it down everybody's throats instead, and now there's a big bipartisan kumbaya at the barn raising of this data site. And yeah, I don't I it just it's boggling. And we have a lot of Michigan politicians are not being quiet about this, especially the very eyebrow raising presence of Governor Gretchen Whitmer to something that was, again, at a state level. AI data centers are very unpopular with both her constituents and people who didn't vote for her in the first place. And also, it's against like a lot of the progressive, wings of the Democratic Party are trying to, come out against these data centers. We've already seen commentary from Abdul expressing disappointment. Rashida Tlaib came out with a very profound, powerful statement, basically calling it disgusting, a disgusting thing to do on Gretchen Whitmer's part to come out and break ground on this unpopular data center. But I think it is illustrative of, this is the one party, two party system. This is the one American party that is, two parties for the ruling class. Some sectors of the ruling class a little bit more liberal, one a little bit more conservative. But when it comes to the big things like building a big AI data center against the will of the people, then the capital joins together and gets it done. Lawrence, what do you
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on this?
Not surprising that the best politicians from the state are, the most progressive politicians from the state are basically calling this what this is that this is a disgusting overreach of corporations' will over the will of the people, right? The corporations are just stomping over what the actual people who live in the town want. Um, that our governor, who takes money from Blue Cross Blue Shield and other multinational corporations, sided with corporate. A neoliberal that all that usually sides with corporations sided with corporations. I'm I to say I would say that I am shocked, but I would be lying. Uh, and I think look, I think Gretchen Whitmore has been a decent governor. There's things that she's done that I do that we've praised before, right? Um, this ain't one of them. This is definitely a L. And I think when she tries to run for president, because I think she has ambitions for higher office, this needs to be brought up.
I'm gonna say, like,
things
if
like
I
this.
were if I were somebody running against her, um, and it really this could come from a progressive or even like one of those like kind of faux populist Republicans. Just just play that on a loop. Just play that on a loop. Her with the shovel about to break ground on a data center that was democratically decided against by the people who live in that town. That you know, whatever her political ambitions are, I think that is going to haunt her in the future, as it should. Like it was that was completely tone deaf, um, appearance to make, and even if like they the corporate benefactors expect a little bit quid pro quo. It's who is part of her team who thought like going to do a photo op at an AI data center was a good idea in this political
The
climate. Seriously.
same people, same people who told her that taking that photo op to go be with Donald Trump was a good
Mm,
idea. Same
yeah.
people. It's the same people when they had the pro-Israel rally in New York City that told Chuck Schumer and all them that you have a what was it, Smotrich that went to that rally, and Smotrich is literally has the International Criminal Court arrest warrant for him. So you have someone that has the International Court arrest warrant for him showing up at this rally, and you choose to be there. That's the same line of thinking, consultant Democrat thinking, that told Big Gretch, "Hey, you should be at this data center when this AI data center, whose sole purpose, sole purpose, outside of using their technology to drone innocent brown and black people in other countries, they're also using that technology to take jobs away from your constituents." That is what uh, Friedman and all these knuckle dragger billionaires have been gleefully saying when they're talking about AI. AI is going to take people's jobs, and you are happy about it. You went and broke bread with them. You went and shared a moment with them instead of calling them out for what they are. Uh,
Yeah, again,
they
like these
are.
people talk about, yeah, like you said, they talk about decreasing the workforce in their own speeches. And like, Gretchen Whitmer's always like, oh, I stand with the Michigan worker. It's like, oh, do you now? Which ones? Apparently the
Yeah,
AI bot workers stands with the AI
yeah,
bots. That's
yeah. You stand with the bot who's going to be automating jobs and taking those jobs from actual humans in the state that you are running. This is bad. This is just bad.
all right. I don't think I have too much else to say on that, but I will link at least a couple of the articles. So those of you in the show notes, so you can read it for yourselves. Particularly, I would really point out this article from Win in Your State that kind of breaks down the minutia of the lawsuit and the settlement that overrode Saline Township's original zoning vote in the
Yeah.
open AI case. So with that, I want to pivot to. Oh, sorry. Go, Lawrence. What?
I have a quick hit before we go on, because we talked about Abdul Al Sayed. I don't know if you saw. Did you see the Senate debate? The debate that they had.
Oh,
With
I meant to watch it. I just had a really, really busy week. I did catch at least a couple of excerpts. I know the, I, I know I'm paraphrasing, but Mallory McMorrow like basically saying better things aren't possible, actually.
oh no, you had Stevens trying to explain why we need to get rid of the filibuster, and then saying that we should use the filibuster to stop the big beautiful bill, forgetting the fact that that's not how the filibuster worked in that scenario. Like, she gave Stevens and McMurrow gave some of the most nonsensical non-answers to questions I have ever seen, and that this is just one of my quick hits. If you have not seen that, and you want to see why Al Abdul is the only choice for Michigan, watch that. And also, the host of that debate, every time Abdul started to cook in that debate, they tried their best to cut him off. Oh, they tried. When it came to talking about AI, when it came to talking about the Israeli lobby, when it came to talking about Medicare for all and money in politics. Like they tried to cut him off so many times when he's like when he was getting into his answers, and it was just a good debate. It was a good debate for Abdul and why he's the only choice in that race.
I did want to expand on that. So the thing that offhand comment. So Mallory McMorrow, what she really said was something to the effect that like is basically the argument that like we need sensible solutions that just doesn't go all the way in this direction. We can't have Medicare for all. We can't have good things. So
Yeah,
instead, it's kind of this
yeah,
like we have to be what is it sensible or whatever. It kind of said instead of waiting for a revolution that may never come. And that's a very telling note because I think it really illustrates the difference between how liberals and leftists see politics. Liberals imagine it as this kind of top-down thing. We vote in the quote unquote right people, and then they make all of the good decisions. And sometimes they have to negotiate with people who make less good decisions. And we just need to be pragmatic, Whereas leftists understand politics as, within the dimensions of power. Can working people build enough power to get X, Y, or Z? I think, especially you heard this refrain a lot of times when socialists run, like Abdul or, Bernie, or even myself when I ran for city commission back in 2019. There was this, specific misunderstanding that, like, I'm promising people these pie in the sky platform points, where like again the platform is not saying I am going to magically push a button and do all this stuff once I'm elected. It's letting the voter know here's where I stand and here's what is possible if we build enough of a working class force, and I think even Bernie Sanders back in the day understood those kind of those vectors of power. He talked about it as building a political revolution. It's participatory. People aren't waiting around for a revolution to happen. They're talking about building something, which if you don't understand, like if you're more coming at it from an angle as like a political careerist rather than a community organizer, that might be something that's profoundly difficult for you to understand. But that is the understanding around these politics when you're talking to like on someone on the radical left or as a left progressive. It's about building people power in order to make things happen. It's not about just voting somebody in who can push a magic button.
yeah, yes, and it's also about uh, reinforcing uh, um, reinforcing that movement so that we are making sure that those that are representing us are actually representing us, keeping our boot. Well, not, I don't like saying it like that, but yeah, it is keeping our boots on their neck, right? It's making sure that those who say that they are going to do good things for us actually deliver, right? Um, we don't want John Fettermans. We don't want people who's going to go into the body politics claiming that they are progressive in their ideology that represents our core values and then flips as soon as they get into power. Like and I feel like um seeing McMorrow and seeing Stevens, I think they're both lovely women. I think it would be great if we like all sat and had a drink for them. Had a drink with them. I think that they'll be fantastic people to have
I ain't
conversations
have
with.
no drink with Stevens. That's
No,
talking
no,
about like Yam Israel Chai or whatever. That no.
yeah, no. But my point is, I think as human beings, they're cool. They might be cool people. They shouldn't be in positions of power that's meant to govern people's lives, and that's the point. And speaking of, because they talked about AI and they talked about AI and things of that nature, and I want to give this really quick hit. Um, Matt Bernstein, we talked about Matt Bernstein before because he interviewed Mallory McMorrow. Matt Bernstein's been doing a lot of, he has a podcast called A Bit Fruity. He's a part of the LGBT community and things of that nature. His podcast is pretty dope. Um, Him and Emma Vigeland from the Majority Report did an hour and 43-minute video breaking down Kevin O'Leary. Kevin O'Leary's the Shark Tank dude who's also pro data center. Like he's trying to build a data center in Utah, he's trying to build a data center basically everywhere. Very similar to the ones that we have in Dowagiac, right? He's he's backing a lot of these. He's a supposed billionaire. I'm gonna say a supposed billionaire. He has a lot of money, right? But they break down. They do a whole video essay about him, breaking down that he's not actually a billionaire. He just played one on TV. He's a lot like Trump in that way,
Yep.
and and it's a fantastic video. If you got time to go see it, like I recommend that video. The I think it was Ashley Sinclair, the lady that had Elon's baby, and then the Republicans rejected her, so now she's just spilling all of
Spilling all
Republican
the
business.
tea. Yeah.
Yeah, she's been everywhere, and like they did a breakdown on her, and she had an interview with Hassan recently, and that was really dope. Like, yeah, their content is really dope. Check out that video. We'll link it in the doobly doo below. But it's a fantastic conversation about how a lot of these rich billionaires who are backing these data centers are uh one are not as smart as you think they are not as rich as they claim they are, and they are just doing this so that they can still extract more wealth and steal more jobs from us. So yeah.
Yep. No, absolutely. Um, I think with that, so there's another important story. This is something going on at the national and state level. I'll kind of wrap it back into what's going on here, but some of you may have been seeing the protest outside of the Delaney Hall facility in Newark, New Jersey, which seems to be there've been kind of like a rotating flashpoints during this almost year and a half dealing with Trump 2.0, and all eyes are really on New Jersey right now because there's been really vigorous protests outside of that particular ICE jail. It's kind of been the solidarity protests going on because there's also a hunger strike going inside the jail to protest the inhumane conditions inside the facility, which include like uh, you know lack of access to water, poor quality food, and abuse from the guards are kind of the three things that's keep being discussed. Um, so I'm gonna wrap it back into Michigan here in a minute, but I know Lawrence, we are talking about this a little bit before we really got started. Do you want to maybe take the baton and talk a little bit about what's going on in New Jersey?
So yeah, for the past year, there's been peaceful protests that have happened outside Delaney Hall. Usually around 15 to 20 people trying to get the message out about the inhumane conditions that the detainees inside of that prison, inside of that concentration camp, because that's basically what it is. It is a modern day concentration camp, and uh, and they've been protesting out for a year. The governor, the mayor, Baraka. I keep messing up his name. I'm so sorry. Uh, he was out there. Ali Melchi from the Nation. Ali was out there. But for the last 2 3 days, ICE, ICE agents who they have a facility, I think 10, 15 minutes away from Delaney Hall. They came with the state troopers to push back protesters because more people started to come and protest um, for what the detainees were asking for. The detainees were asking for the governor to come down to see what's actually going on inside. They're asking basically for their freedoms and for them to be represented. Um, for basically for the food that they are given not to be maggot filled or covered in rat feces and things of that nature. They just asking for basic humanity. And ICE beat the absolute brakes off of some of the protesters last night. Shout out to Status Quo, shout out to Ali Melchi, they and other journalists that were down there, because they weren't just violent with the peaceful protesters; they were also violent against the journalists. one of the films that one of the things that I saw when we were talking about the story, shout out to Jordan Sheridan and Status Coup, an ICE agent kicked a protester into an 18 wheeler. Like their leg got ran over by the 18 wheeler. Or like it was bad. It was very bad. Like they the brutal nature and how ICE and the police officers escalated violence against protesters who's asking for humanity for other human beings was insane. Absolutely insane. Shout out to Democracy Now! Because they also were covering this. Shout out to uh, Kyle Kalinske because he also covered it and they was filming it. But yeah, it is wild to see our state police and ICE fully embrace the brown shirts, the Nazi brown shirts, because that's the type of behavior that they were doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to just tie it a little bit into the relationship between fascism and capital. Fascism, in the broader sense, is where that's where capitalist states go when they are unstable. And I think this is a really good way to draw out that example because something that all of these facilities that we're seeing these rolling hunger strikes from have in common is that they are private facilities managed by the GEO Group, which you've probably heard us talk about them on the show before. They are in our rogues gallery, of these corporations, but they're mostly in the business of maintaining private prisons. And their business has exploded under Trump 2.0, building up all of these de facto ICE facilities, including right here in Baldwin, Michigan, at the North Lake Processing Center. Where one of the first hunger strikes erupted. We were covering that, I think, about a month ago. Um, and North Lake, of course, is the largest ICE facility in the Midwest. You're not seeing a lot of the same scenes that you're seeing out of New Jersey, largely because North Lake is in a very kind of off the beaten track, dirt road part of Michigan. But there have been a lot of protests in and around Baldwin about that particular site. Um, and it goes to show too, like these all of these assertions, allegations from the prisoners in these private prisons run by Geo Group. Like this is the connection. This is all about making money while uh, going about this agenda that tries to immiserate and again scapegoat a group of people, in this case immigrants, all that stuff. But yeah, we should not get veer too far from where the profit motive is in all of this. And you had companies like Geo Group actively lobbying and supporting the second Trump administration because they knew that there was money to be made in their kind of mass arrest, mass deportation plans.
Yeah, pretty much. It's Geo Group. If you haven't read Freedom is a Constant Struggle from my with Angela Davis, Geo Group is also the people who helped create the open air prison that Gaza was basically that Israel contracted for Gaza for Palestinian prisoners. They're contracted. So it's not that they're just harming us in America. They're also harming brown and black people in other countries.
Yeah, that's
So
it's an important thing to point out. Like, the 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 plight of Palestinians and the plight of again prisoners up in Baldwin, Michigan. There's a direct line, between
and
that sort of colonialism and the repression we are seeing back home right here in the mitten. Yeah.
yeah, and the what's going on in New Jersey is is one of many uh, atrocities that's been happening. One of many atrocities that's been happening at these concentration camps. Some of the ones in the South, in Florida, the one that they called Alligator, Alcatraz, and others. There were reports of women being assaulted, minors in those facilities, and becoming getting pregnant. And I want to remind everybody that uh, prisoners cannot consent. People who are being detained cannot consent. Um, Minors cannot consent. You want to know who really cannot consent? A minor that's being detained in a immigration facility. They cannot they cannot consent, and there have been multiple accounts of sexual assault that has happened to women and to children in those facilities that has been reported. Um, and also, again, tying it back to Palestine, there's also been multiple reports. Shout out to Democracy Now! And others. There's also reported of Israeli soldiers doing the same thing to Palestinian prisoners. So it's not like our guards are. It's not like ICE did not learn this from somewhere. It's not like these practices are not new somewhere. It like this. You wonder. We talk about policy and culture all the time, but if the culture of the facility is to not say anything, there's no snitching policy. When you see people of authority harming other inmates, then you're either going to be complicit and not say anything or try to stop it or try to be a whistleblower, or more insidious, more likely, what's going to end up happening is those people are also going to participate. So yeah, like these things that's going down in Delaney Hall are not just a canary in the coal mines. These are the bullhorns that something bad is happening here, and we all should be focusing on this.
Yeah, and I'd say like all solidarity to the people in Newark who are protesting against these conditions. Like I mentioned, part of what's going on is like the city of Newark has inspectors that are supposed to have the authority to inspect Delaney Hall, and the federal immigration officers are trying to refuse them access to certain parts of the facility. It's kind of this jurisdictional battle, which, of course, legally, the inspectors in Newark have every right to inspect that publicly owned facility, but they are being illegally stonewalled and kept from doing that uh, by
Gee,
by immigration customs enforcement, which is again, it's part of this whole administration's MO. They just they act with impunity, just while doing things that are overtly illegal and immoral.
I wonder why the ICE facility who the prisoners are saying is um that their food has maggots in it. That people who are supposed to be getting their medicine not getting their medicine. Dozens of people in these modern day concentration camps have died because they did not get the medical attention that they deserved. They had women miscarrying in these facilities because they were not giving proper medical treatment. You wonder why they don't want you to see what's happening inside. It's
Yeah,
all
yeah. Mhm.
it's almost like they know. And if you knew or had proof, then you might ask for accountability on why these things are not being fixed.
Mhm. Yep, absolutely. So, I don't have too much else to say on that. I mean, do you, Lawrence, or the?
Now we can move on.
All right. Uh,
I do have a couple quick hits, but
All right. Okay, I think I also have a quick hit here, and not that this isn't a big story, but I don't have a ton to say about for now. I think I'm gonna try to see if we can set up an interview sometime next week. But many of you may have heard workers down at Three Rivers are going on strike at an axle plant. I'm just going to really read this is just a quick news brief from Michigan Advance. Workers strike at Three Rivers Axle Plant as contract expires. Um, it's published on June 1st by Kyle Davidson. Union workers in St. Joseph County walked out of work Monday as United Auto Workers issued a simple statement to leadership at American Axle. No contract, no axles. The union said the critical GM supplier failed to offer a fair contract to workers in its Three Rivers plant, with members of UAW Local 2093 striking at midnight to coincide with the expiration of their contract. Long-term workers making $29 an hour in 2008 saw their wages reduced to $14.50 an hour amid the financial crisis, the union said in a statement. God, that's really pitiful by today's standards, by the way. That's like less. Oh, man. 18 years later, those wages still
Oh,
haven't recovered, with wages at the plant topping out at $22 an hour after a 5 year progression, it said. We did it to save the company. We did more than save them. We made them billions of dollars. So tonight's about getting our fair share. We paid the price. Now it's time that we reap the benefits. Josh Jagger, the bargaining chairman for UAW Local 2093, said during a live stream announcing the strike. The UAW has also filed federal unfair labor practice charges against the company, accusing American Axle of illegally threatening and intimidating union members organizing ahead of the May 31st contract deadline. The union alleges American Axle called local police to remove off duty employees distributing UAW literature, buttons, and stickers at the plant's entrance and threatened workers with termination and trespassing charges. American Axle and Manufacturer Holdings Incorporated, which changed its name to Douch Corporation at the beginning of the year, did not respond to an email request for comment. Uh,
yeah.
sorry, Lawrence,
Uh,
do you want to chime in? I'm sorry.
no, no. Local economists. I forgot the economist name, but they said to rent a average to get a family of four to have a two-bedroom apartment in Michigan, you would need to make at least $30 an hour. So American Axle was originally paying workers $28 an hour, and then they cut it to 15.
That's less than
They
half of that number you just quoted, Lawrence.
they raised it up to 22. They raised it back up to 22, which means even if a employee at American Axle still worked a full-time job, if they were a family of four and they were trying to rent a two-bedroom apartment in Michigan, they still would not make enough money because American Axle did not pay them enough to afford a two-bedroom apartment in Michigan. This company made let me not give out any misinformation. American Axle, what was American Axle gross product? I'm trying to find it right now.
I'm something in the billions of dollars. I'm pretty sure.
Oh no,
Yeah.
found it. Profit. Uh, Profit. Let's say last year. Let's say last year's profit. American Axle. This is coming from American Axle. This is coming from them, right? Uh, their sales reported in November 7th. Hey, it's on my birthday. Was reported on November 7th. This is coming from their quarterly report, their third quarterly report. They made 1.51 billion dollars net income. Their sales was 1.5 net billion dollars. Their net income was 9.2. Um, over the course of the year, their revenue was between 5.3 billion. Uh, was 5.3 billion. In comparison, now we're going to compare it to 2024. they made 6.12 billion. So they went down. I still want to remind you that they're in the billions.
Billions with a B. Yeah. Hmm.
So this corporation was bailed out by the government and by their workers by taking a pay cut because of the pandemic and things of that nature, right? Their employees took that pay cut, took it on the chin, right? Even though everything else, even though groceries and everything else went up, inflation went up, right? And now they're a multi-billion-dollar company. For at least 2 years, they have been a multi-billion-dollar company. And you're telling me that they cannot give their employees a raise back to the $28 amount? If you're telling me that they cannot do that and still be a billion-dollar company, then I have a bridge to sell you.
Yep.
They keep
Hmm.
choosing not to.
Well, it's all the more important for the board of American Axle to have be financially secure because there's just so much pressure on the Morris, like but I mean this is why we always talk about the importance of unions and they could fight for workers and even really above and beyond that. And if you ever listen to Dr. Richard Wolf, he talks about this a lot, but the idea of like workplace cooperatives, and think that's something that people need to push for a lot more too, because in a in a scenario like that, everybody could democratically decide how the profits would be spent. And again, much more likely that the workers would choose to reinvest that into their own pockets rather than, uh, sending it to some rich person who's already hoarded a bunch of money or future investment into et cetera, et cetera. So, um,
So wait, let me give you this quick. Let me give you this quick breakdown. This is the quarterly breakdown. This is coming from American Axle. This is coming from them. This is on their website. Quarterly one in 2025. They made their net income was 7.1 million, and they and on was 7.1 million on 1.41 billion dollars in sales. Right, quarterly two. Uh, their net income was 3.9 million on 1.54 billion in sales, and quarterly three was 9.2 million on 1.51 billion dollars in sales. So they made so even last year, through the ups and downs, and in last year the economy crashed because of 45, because of the super dumb tariffs, right? This is the like I'm not discounting the things that happened in the economy that may have hurt this company. I'm not discounting that. Even still, this company made multi-billion dollars. They have no excuse. They
no,
have
mm-mm.
no. The only excuse
Yeah.
that they have, I don't wanna. They have the same excuse as as a toddler that doesn't want to take a nap. I don't wanna.
Yeah, pretty much. And I will definitely say, like, we'll link to the story and all solidarity to UAW local 2093. I'll try to reach out to them. Maybe we can get a union rep or something on next week. Just kind of see like what can people here in Southwest Michigan do to help them during this strike season and all that. But yeah, good for them, and hopefully they get everything that they're asking for from American Axle. Um,
Yeah.
okay. Lawrence, you said you have, do you want to toss the ball back to you? You said you might have some more quick hits. Is that right?
Yeah, I got a couple quick hits. normally, what was one of my quick? Well, I had a few. I had a few quick hits. So Israel struck Lebanon. Israel struck Lebanon and in Beirut, right? They killed a bunch of innocent women and children. They tried to tell people to evacuate 10 minutes before they started bombing. And they were trying to tell people, they were telling people where the safe zone would be, and then Israel bombed the safe zone. Okay, I want to give everyone that level, that basic information that has been reported by international news. Right? We all understand that this is what's going on. Can anyone please explain to me while that was going on? While there was a pro-Israel, the Israel rally that took place in New York, right? And we had
Hmm.
international, we had people who are charged by the IC, by the International Criminal Courts, Israelis that are part of the government that are charged by the International Criminal Court of doing crimes, went to New York and celebrated with Chuck Schumer and others to stand with Israel, right? For Americans to stand with Israel, right? All of that took place. And Cenk Uygur and Hassan Piker got banned from going to the UK for South by
Oh
Southwest.
yeah.
I,
Hmm.
I,
About that.
like,
Oh.
I, I saw this story. I saw this story, and I was like, wait, what? Wait. Okay, so these things that I just said was in out. Shout out to Al Jazeera again. Shout out to Al Jazeera. Shout out to Zateo. Shout out to shout out to the Independent. Shout out to the Guardian because these are where I'm getting all this information from. Right. South by Southwest was supposed to have Cenk Uygur and Hassan Piker go there. I think one of I think one of the Oxford wanted them to go and have a debate there, right? And hey, we've criticized TYT before. I rock with the other shows on TYT. I think the Damage Report is still fantastic. Fantastic news show. John does his thing. Dr. Rashad Ritchie does his thing on Indisputable. The TYT Sports with Ricky Strong, super strong, right? Um, I don't like the way that Annika Experience been moving over the last a little bit over the last few years, and Jank sometimes makes me upset. But when it comes to them talking about uh, protecting the Palestinian people and fighting for liberation for Palestinian people, I rock with them 100%. We've talked about Hassan. I don't necessarily agree with Hassan's takes on a lot of things because I feel like a lot of times when you have leftists that talks about issues, especially black issues or other things, that sometimes they miss the boat, right?
Mm, yeah.
Jenk and Anna
Kind of a
definitely
blind
have,
spot, you know. Yeah.
yeah. There's a bunch of blind spots, especially when we're talking about solidarity and solidarity when we talk about liberation, revolution, things of that nature that they all talk about. All of them have talked about. South by Southwest in the UK banning Hassan and Jenk because they criticize Israel, not because they criticize the UK, because they criticize Israel, is absolutely and it's absolutely dumb. It's radical, and it's the Labor Party. It's the Labor Party that banned them.
Yep.
Corbyn's not the head of the Labor Party anymore. It's
Was that Keir Starmer, I think?
yeah,
Or,
Keir Starmer.
yeah.
I think it's the head of the Labor Party now. Honestly, and this is my speculation, I don't know how the funding. I don't know how funding goes of politicians in the UK work. But if we go on Open Secrets and there are organizations that are tied to Israel that's funding Keir Starmer, I wouldn't be surprised
Well,
because
we know they have some corruption in their campaign finance system. You know, like J.K. Rowling openly brags about financially boosting transphobic politicians and legislation. So, yeah.
so
Also, UK is interesting because like they have a lot of the same kind of touchstones of Western liberalism that the US does about like, kind of like yeah, human rights for people who support capitalism and not so much for everyone else. However, they are a little they don't have kind of this institutional reverence for like the First Amendment or free speech to the United States. There's this one is the one that like kind of even kind of I'm kind of taken aback by it. It is legally it is illegal in the UK to go outside and say the words "I support Palestine Action." Palestine Action is this direct action group that literally they go to munitions factories where arms are being made for Israel, and they take sledgehammers to it. They engage in property destruction to try to slow down the war machine. Very commendable. But yeah, you could get arrested in the UK for saying the words "I support Palestine Action," which obviously we have talked a lot about the way Trump, the Trump administration and the U.S. government, and even the government under Biden was suppressing pro-Palestine speech here in the United States. But of course, they never got to the point where we could they did or even were capable of saying this string of words is illegal to say and you'll be arrested for saying them.
yeah, dog, like I think the thing for me that makes me the most angry is that South by Southwest, that organization, that's the organization that was supposed to have them there in the UK. And while they were in the UK, they were supposed to link up. They were supposed to link up with Corbyn. They were supposed to do some Oxford stuff. And South by Southwest prides itself. It advertises itself on saying that they like hearing diverse voices from different cultures, so they can make sure that everyone's being heard. Right. This is what they say. This is what they advertise. And a particular group of people told them to shut that down and don't bring these people over. And they was like, "Yes, sir, right away, sir. We will do as you're told because we don't actually care about freedom and thought and that free thinking and free thought of other human beings. We care about the donors, and we are faithful, loving lapdogs." That is
Yeah.
the thing that makes me the most angry about this situation. Because I'm like, it'll be one thing if you say what I say about the UK is that the UK is the greatest colonizers on the planet Earth. They are when it comes to colonization and imperialism, the UK is second to none. There are what 170 something countries in the world, and the you like 100 I think no it's 173 countries or something, and the UK has colonized all but 13 of them. There are 68 countries that celebrate their independence from the UK, from the United Kingdom.
That's an idea. Like it's like somebody was like, what should South by Southwest should have done? And I know this would probably have been a huge logistical headache, but like I don't know, Ireland's next door. You go find a building in Dublin or something, And I know those
Yeah,
no, those people they have much better politics, partly because of the British colonization you just mentioned, but they're not going to be telling you, oh, it's illegal to criticize Israel. They'll be like, no, it's,
it's
they
not because
recognize it. It's the same colonial boot, different century. But yeah,
it's not like we criticize the UK and saying, hey, they shouldn't have a king and queen, or that the Commonwealth that the UK talks about is still a part of their imperialistic nature, and that the king and queen are just faces of the imperialistic nature of the UK, of them still asserting power. These are things that you can criticize. You can criticize that their food is nasty. I don't know why people eat beans on toast. Okay, like I don't know. Like I think that's nasty. right? These are criticisms, legit or not legit, that you can say about the UK. I think the people of the UK are wonderful. I think the UK people are amazing. I think their government sucks big giant balls, right? That's what I think. I think the people are amazing. I think the government sucks. I can say all of that and still go to the UK. I can say all of that and still be welcome in the UK. But if I was to say that all those same things about Israel, that I think the people are cool, I think the government is right wing authoritarian, and they are harming their neighbors because of backwards ideology, and they see their neighbors as less than they are.
Yep,
They
yep.
will not be able to go to the UK. I will be banned.
Mhm.
That
I
is
don't know.
crazy.
I've playfully thought about like I might be going to the UK in the fall, and like I'm really tempted to. It's like I was like, how far can you push that? It's just like I support Palestine. Action movies are great, and just say that next to a cop or a Bobby or whatever they call them. I don't know.
That's
No,
crazy.
I no, probably shouldn't try that on a trip. It's got limited time to anyway. Uh,
Yeah, that's
um, I've got a quick hit, real. Just gotta toss it over real quick. This is a short update, but I thought it was kind of interesting when you talk about some of the issues around it. You may remember we reported on this a couple years ago, but some of you may know or remember, Interlochen Center for the Arts was in the news, international news, a couple years ago, for not the best reason, and that is to say, um, a lot of us, if you have a lot of friends who are in the arts, and Kalamazoo is an arts town, I knew people who went to Interlochen. I'm pretty sure you did too, Lawrence, and um, what unfortunately, some frequent visitors to the Interlochen Center for the Arts were Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. And in fact, until about 2008, um, when he was had that original conviction in Florida for soliciting sex from a minor, one of the buildings at Interlochen was called the Epstein Lodge. They renamed it the Green Lake Lodge. However, they have decided that that particular building should be demolished. They're actually going to demolish the lodge entirely, the Green Lake Lodge. Um, they said it has over time come to carry associations that are not reflective of who we are as an institution or the values we strive to uphold, i.e., hopefully, people sending their kids to go learn at Interlochen don't have to worry about them being trafficked into in a elite pedophile ring that you know as, but probably I would say that's a very good decision on the school. Renaming it was a solid choice, but I don't think especially like send your kids to Interlochen Center for the Arts, where we have a lodge that was created by the most notorious sex trafficker in history. uh and that has to be the most cursed haunted building on planet Earth. Like it's just like forget about the Black Lodge from Twin Peaks. This is the Epstein Lodge. This is like this way worse. It's just like it's a, the nightmare is worse than anything David Lynch could ever come up with. Um, but yeah, good on them for doing that. Although it does also, was the fact of kind of the unspoken thing uh, when Interlochen was brought into these stores to begin with is kind of the way that the elite can kind of gain access to these sensitive areas, i.e., a place that's meant to be a place of safety and education and learning for children through the power of money. Ghislaine Maxwell, because that Epstein paid to have a lodge built there, was able to wander around and pick at young vulnerable people like a sex predator buffet. And that's something that Interlochen has necessarily tried to avoid really commenting on or talking about, their own kind of culpability in this. But this is something we find in many institutions where predators who have the correct kind of resources get access to places that other people don't.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know what to say here. Uh, that's wild. That's uh, yeah, that's wild. The garbage. They're like, yeah, that's oof.
Yeah, sometimes there's little else we can really say about story except oof. Yeah, man. But yeah,
That's
demolish it, burn the ground, cleanse it, get like yeah, get a priest, get some indigenous medicine folk, get just yeah, a rabbi, an imam, just everybody, just oh man, get the
I feel
Ghostbusters.
get the Ghostbusters is crazy. No, I mean, there might be some evidence of who he was in solidarity with if they were to look into who was running it at the time, who he ended up talking to or being involved with. There might be some information there. There might be some information there. Um, yeah, that's crazy. That I ain't got nothing to say on that.
All right. Okay, Lawrence, we got about 8 minutes left, or yeah, about 8 minutes left on the show. Do you have any other stories you want to hit on while we still got time?
Oh man, there's so many. There's so many stories that we still need to talk about. Relevant stories. I know William Barber, and multiple other black organizers have been organizing to get black voting rights back, and organizing around that. Please go and look up what William Barber and the Poor People's Campaign and his other organizations are doing. They're doing the Lord's work out here. Shout out to Reverend William Barber. He is just outstanding. Um. Oh yeah. There's a couple stories. Uh. So I never spoke on uh I know that like last week in the news cycle, the Kevin Hart roast was a big thing. It was in the news cycle, and I never spoke on it. I don't know if you saw it or not.
I did not, but I did hear some of the discourse about it.
Yeah, so small discourse. How I, and some of the things that how I felt about it. Um, I'm not gonna tell a comedian what they can and cannot say, but that does not stop me from judging them for saying it and why they thought it was funny for them to say it in the first place, right? Um, for me in particular, um, Kevin Hart. You can argue is one of the greatest comedians of this generation, right? Like him, not like him, but the man has put in the work, and he has a number of specials that are funny. Grown little man, seriously funny, laugh at my pain. Um, uh, Let me explain. All of these specials are funny, certified funny. I laughed very hard at all of them, right? So when you have a roast, and the whole premise of a roast is for you to have people that you grew up with, people who you love, people that you work with, to to give you your flowers while you're still here, to joke about you, talk about you, and to go to have a giant roasting session. But they're all ultimately there to give you your flowers, right? Richard Pryor's roast is a standout if you've never seen it. Dean Martin's roast was a really good one, right? Um, the criticism that I've been seeing around it, and my criticism of it is that Kevin did not listen to Kendrick Lamar during the Drake and Kendrick beef because there were people that were on that stage that shouldn't be there. They're not like us,
Mm.
and it showed in their jokes, right? Um, Shane Gillis, like Shane Gillis, not like Shane Gillis. He's not my cup of tea. But him and Tony Hinchcliffe are both in that Rogan Spear, Austin comics, and you could tell because their jokes were trash, dumpster juice. They just they you can have a joke that's about race without being racist. Their jokes and their punchline is racist, and that's the problem. A joke is supposed to have a setup, a a premise, a setup, and a punchline. And the premise, setup, and punchline is you being shocked at how racist it is. Isn't a joke. It's just you getting. It's just you wanting to say racist stuff and get away with it.
Yeah, I
For
think
me,
too, a lot of these comedians try to conflate it with like, oh, you're offended, and it's a roast. You're supposed to say raunchy things. And it's like the thing is, it's like, yeah, like you said, you can tell jokes about race without being racist. And there's no like magical shroud that makes it more acceptable because it's a roast.
yeah. So 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 my thing is this: it's Kevin Hart's show. The thing, and the only reason why I'm bringing it up now is because Kevin's been doing damage control, talking about it. Even now, us talking about it is him is giving it more praise. And when he says things like "it was my production," um, it was my production. What were we supposed to do? What you could have done is not have is a for one of the best black comedians of our generation. You shouldn't have had 13 writers write the most crispity, crunchity, crackety raccoon jokes of all time. That's what you could have done. Maybe you could have started there. Maybe uh if you wanted to have Shane Gillis because Shane is from Philly, cool. Tony didn't need to be there. You Shane is already a MAGA supporting comedian. If you wanted him to be there, he could have took Tony's spot. There were there were 18 jokes that were taken out of the special, and the reason why a lot of controversy was there was a Charlie Kirk joke that was actually funny. Shout out to Pete Davidson. There was some Zionist jokes that was said. Shane Gillis said about Chelsea Handler. Chelsea Handler talked about them going about them being tied to Joe Rogan and Trump and the Riyadh Comedy Fest. There were uh, dead husband jokes that they said about Cheryl Underwood. Cheryl Underwood clapped back to everybody, and she arguably, in my opinion, had one of the best sets of the night. Um, but Tony's jokes, one wasn't funny, and Tony shouldn't have been there. And that also goes back to Kevin. There were 18 jokes that were taken out of the special. Some of them was about the president, some of them was about Melania. You're telling me you took out those jokes, but you didn't take out the George Floyd joke? You
Mm,
didn't take out you didn't take out the lynching joke? You didn't take out the lynching joke. You didn't take out okay, the slave the your family came Kevin Hart's family came to America on a slave ship that was in a bottle. That's messed up. That's funny, but that's also messed up. So I'm like, all right, that's borderline, that's crazy. But you're telling me that the George Floyd joke wasn't out of pocket, but the jokes about Trump and Melania was out of pocket? So much so that you made sure that it stayed out of the live production. If you're telling me that those jokes could get cut out, then you could also tell me that George Floyd joke could come cut out. Also, you can't say that you couldn't do anything about it because he kept referencing the Tom Brady roast. Jeff Ross, who was one of the comedians that was prominent in the roast, was about to talk about Bill Belichick, and Brady stopped him. Brady stopped him. You're telling me that you did not stop Tony, so this means that you are okay with him saying that, and you were
hmm.
one of the people. who helped fund George Floyd's funeral. And I'm like, you was one of the celebrities that was there to support. It rubbed me the wrong way, and it was not okay. And this is in because my biggest criticism is, Kev, this is your production. You know Gary Owens. Gary Owens is a white comedian that talks about black people and black culture, and because he's married to black women, and he does it in a way that's still respectful to black people. You know Mikey Day. You know Justina Valentine. You know Matt Rife. These are all people, all white comedians that were on Wild 'N Out. Wild 'N Out, who your friend Nick Cannon runs. You were on the pilot episode. You are one of the only comedians that is continuously that has continued to be on that show with those comedians. You cannot tell me that you could not have had them on the show, or you could not have Tiffany Haddish take that spot. Tony didn't have to be there. Tony did not have to be there. The issue that I have is that Kev, if this was Sinners, Kev let the vampires in the club because the vampires paid him enough money, and that's the problem.
Yeah. All right. I think we're kind of going to have to wrap up there. But Lawrence, thanks again for coming on to the show and all our spirited discussion. For all the folks out there, you can find us on YouTube, Facebook, and the Media Cyphers Kalamazoo podcast. You can find that on most podcasting uh, applications. Sorry, brain fart.
Oh yeah, we're all on the social media. You can find us all over. Also, shout out to Cat Williams because his set was one of the funnier sets. It was crazy.
Oh yeah,
but anyway,
right.
love peace and all that good stuff.
All right, okay, everybody. Until next time, keep on fighting for that revolution solution.